A rafting trip was supposed to help me heal. Instead, I saw something in the river that shouldn't exist. Now I can't sleep, I can't forget, and I think it's still watching me.
I've never been a big fan of extreme sports. I was once stung by a wasp as a child, and since then I've shied away from nature like the plague. Even a simple trip to the park was a reason to get nervous for me. But everything changed after my father died. He passed away suddenly, a heart attack. I was in another country at a conference and didn't have time to say goodbye to him. After that, a funnel began in my life, as if I was sucked into a black hole where everything became meaningless. Work, meetings, even my favorite music caused only irritation. I stopped eating, stopped going out. And it was at that moment that my friends decided to intervene. There were 4 of us, me, Rick, Andrew, and Mike. We had been friends since college. Mike was the life of the party, always with a guitar and eternal stupid ideas. Rick was serious, sometimes boring, but the most reliable of us. And Andrew was, well, let's just say he was the kind of guy who could start a conversation with a squirrel and then 5 minutes later offer to subscribe to his podcast. They were my only link to reality. We're going whitewater rafting, man, Andrew said. Mountain river, tents, campfires. Really grown-up stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff, I muttered. You will now, Mike chimed in. It's time to buck up. Dad would have loved this. It was a low blow. He knew how to say it, so I couldn't refuse. Eventually, I caved. We had a couple of days in Oregon. The route went along the Mackenzie River, a picturesque place with a powerful current, pine forests, and fog sliding down the slopes like ghosts. We arrived at the base, went through a briefing, donned helmets and life jackets, got paddles, and headed downstream. And the first couple of hours were cool. I didn't expect it. The adrenaline was invigorating, the landscapes were amazing. Mike was singing, sitting on the bow, Rick was always encouraging, Andrew was filming stories and handing out sips of whiskey from a flask to everyone. Even I caught myself laughing. It was as if the veil had lifted a little. On the 3rd day of the descent, we chose a difficult route, the so-called Crow's Creek, a remote, less popular part of the river. The guide said that this place was for experienced people. Andrew waved his hand. We're going there. We're experienced in stubbornness. Laughter, shouts, more jokes. But inside I had an unpleasant feeling. Inexpressible anxiety. I attributed it to nerves and lack of sleep. We continued. About half an hour later, the river changed. The current became sharper, the rocks closer, the noise louder. We entered the rapid zone. One particularly sharp turn and everything went to hell. I only remember the boat rocking. Someone screamed. The boat tilted and I was simply thrown out. It all happened in a second. I felt the oar slip out of my hands, the helmet hit my head, and then I was in the water. Cold. Absolute. As if the river grabbed me with its icy hands. I tried to surface, but the current knocked out my breath. Water poured into my nose, into my mouth. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. The current smashed me against the rocks like a rag doll. As if the river didn't want to let go. Then darkness. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe seconds. Maybe an eternity. When I opened my eyes, everything around was gray. Underwater, but not just water. A space without boundaries. No light, no surface. Only a murky, thick something. I didn't feel a body. Only consciousness. And fear. And then I saw her. She was a little to the side. A female figure. Pale skin. Long, loose hair, gently writhing in the water. I couldn't turn around, but she was moving slowly, approaching me. Her face was too perfect. Motionless. Like a mask. But her eyes were alive. Black, like the bottom of an abyss. She smiled. Not softly. Not humanly. Her mouth stretched almost to her ears. And at that moment it seemed to me that her hair was reaching out to me like seaweed, wrapping itself around my arms, legs. They were hugging, caressing. Or dragging me away. I screamed. Or tried to. There was too much water. But inside, a wild, animalistic horror. Suddenly, a sharp tug. Light. Air. Someone was pulling me up. I coughed, wheezed, greedily gulped oxygen. I was pulled to the shore. Mike and Rick. Their faces were scared, white. Andrew almost cried. You were underwater for 3 minutes, Rick squeezed out. Dude, we already thought. I didn't answer. I just lay on the wet sand, shaking. A year has passed, but I can't forget. I tried. I really tried to forget what I saw underwater. To write it off to hypoxia, hallucinations, stress, finally. But the more I convinced myself of a logical explanation, the more details emerged that could not be just imagination. Like how the hair of that entity moved against the current. How the water around it was strangely still. In the river, where everything was seething, there was silence next to it. How its gaze literally pierced me through the thickness of the water. I started digging. At first, it was just sleepless nights with Google, hallucinations during drowning, prolonged stay underwater, mental effects of hypoxia, but nothing described it. Then I delved into legends, folklore, superstitions, and I found more than I wanted. It turned out that the Mackenzie River had long been surrounded by rumors. Native tribes spoke of water women who came to those who had lost the will to live. They didn't kill, they took them into their world. Sometimes the bodies were not found at all. Sometimes they were found weeks later, but without any signs of damage, as if the person had simply fallen asleep in the water. I wrote everything down. I started a notebook, then a second one, then a Google Drive. I created a map of disappearances on the river over the past 50 years. There were too many of them to be random. I noted dates, seasons, weather. There was a pattern. Most disappearances happened on cloudy days, late afternoon. Almost all were men, aged 25 to 35, in a state of loss, depression, or loneliness. I learned that the Celts also believed in water women, kelpies, neckies, mermaids, not to be confused with those singing from the rocks in cartoons. These entities were ancient, ruthless, and most often appeared to those who were on the edge. Like me then, my friends stopped writing to me. Mike told me outright that I had gone crazy. Rick tried to persuade me to see a psychiatrist. Only Andrew silently sent me a link to a forum, a place where people shared similar stories. I dove into this community head first. I was not alone. A guy from Sweden told how he saw a woman in the water in a lake near Luleå, who called him by name, although he did not tell anyone where he was going. A girl from Canada swore that she heard singing under the ice, and her brother fell through the ice, although the ice was 20 centimeters thick. And everywhere a female figure in the water. Always alone, always unnaturally beautiful, always with black eyes. I started to believe that it wasn't just something. It was them. Or her. Maybe the same mind in different places. Maybe they weren't attached to the body. My obsession got to the point where I went to the same river again. Alone. I rented a boat. I put on a life jacket. I turned on the action camera. I turned on the recorder. I wanted to see her again. Of course, I didn't see anything. Of course, it all looked like I was really crazy. But now I'm obsessed with another idea, regression. It's a kind of psychological hypnosis in which you can see the past. I want to review this memory again and understand what I did see. Maybe someone can recommend a good specialist? A regression psychologist. Do you think this is too much? Would you leave the story alone? Or would you dig further?